Welcome to the Fighting on Film podcast, the podcast all about classic and obscure war movies, from the Normandy landings to the days of chivalry and swords. If it's been captured on film, we're going to try and cover it. I'm Robbie of RM Military History.
I'm Matthew Moss of Historical Firearms and the Armourer's Bench.
This is 5 to Alpha, contact now, agreed. 852-676, approximately 4 tanks, 10 APCs moving directly towards the wood. I'm observing, over.
Hello Sunray. Fighting on Film has partnered up with warfaremedia.net to give our listeners exclusive discounts on a range of high-resolution Cold War adverts, propaganda and recruitment posters. From blowpipes to nuclear threats to weapon schematics, Warfare Media has you covered. Visit warfaremedia.net today and use the code FOF20 at checkout for 20% off high-quality Cold War posters. I repeat, FOF20 at checkout. Over.
Roger, out to you, and take action now. Send us SITREP as soon as possible. Over.
Hello and welcome back to Fighting on Film. This week we're covering some classic B-movie fare from the 50s. Now, Rob's not feeling too well, but we're going to muddle through.
You're going
to soldier on, aren't you, Rob?
I'm going to soldier on, yes. And we should briefly mention, if you weren't aware on the Twitter and the socials last week, that we've rectified the Spotify situation.
We have.
Yes.
By our powers combined, we finally managed to get through to Spotify. We had trouble with passwords and logins and all sorts of different things.
That was.
Yeah, we struggled with that, and then Rob managed to. I got the password sorted out, and then Rob managed to get someone on chat. And we finally got it cleared up. It was an RSS feed issue, apparently.
Yes.
It split the show into two, so there was two going up. So we've been going up on a separate account, which had, I think, 90 followers on there, and the other one's got like 2,000-ish.
Yeah.
Thank you very much if you follow us on Spotify. Actually, we did a tweet this week, just kind of do like a little poll to see where everyone listens. And a lot of people do use Spotify. A lot of people use Apple as well, and then there's a lot of other miscellaneous platforms. I always find it really interesting to find out where people listen and what people do while they're listening, because I do all sorts while I'm listening to podcasts, like cooking and driving and all sorts of random
just life. It sounds like you're just doing life, mate.
that might be it, actually. But anyway, back to the show. This week we are going to be taking a look at William Witney's 1959 Paratroop Command. Now, It's classic B-movie fare, often cited as one of Quentin Tarantino's favourite war movies.
He loves it. Yeah.
Apparently so.
So I was looking through for the episode, and there's like multiple interviews where he mentions this, and he says how Whitney's one of the most underrated directors of that 50s, 40s Hollywood era. You know, the Paratroop Command itself is quite interesting because it's just unashamedly what it is. It's not trying to be anything else. It's a really interesting little movie. But before we get into Paratroop Command, we've got the large question. And this week's was, what's your desert island war movie? Because we often say on the show that Fighting on Film is a little bit like Desert Island Discs for war films. Well, that was one of the original ideas, wasn't it, for the show?
Need to do more of that. Maybe in 25. Yeah.
Anyway, so getting into some of your Desert Island war films, we've got Ian McClellan, who says it's got to be The Great Escape. Good choice. Paul Hicks says got to be Waterloo. Like it. Ian Fraser Johnson says Lawrence of Arabia. Jane Guilford Lowe says White Christmas. Lost in Translation.
I'm seeing a pattern here. It's long war movies.
Yeah, of course.
To take up the time of waiting for rescue. I get it.
Yeah,
I can see it.
I like it.
Understandable.
Lost in Translation, and Matt, you'll like this one. He says it's a tough choice, but I'll go with Sahara, 1943.
Yeah.
Nick Lahari says The Cruel Sea. A.D. Bond also goes with The Cruel Sea. And rounding us out this week, we'll go with Ian Miles, who says Good Morning Vietnam. And if comedy isn't allowed, he said Max Manus, Man at War.
Oh, that's a good one. We need to do that one.
Yeah, I do. I've got
a lot of people speak very highly of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've quite enjoyed it. What's your Desert Island war film, mate?
That's tricky. It's tricky. I would also say Sahara. I like that. That's a good choice.
Wild Geese.
Oh, yeah. Obviously. Yeah.
It's fun, isn't it? It was fun. Right. But no, thank you for that, folks. We always love the large question. So, cast for Paratroop Command, and we have a return of the Gunsmoke and Combat Club.
Woo!
Yes. So, kicking off the cast with Richard Bacallan playing Charlie. The movie tells you everyone is at the start. It's very useful. I like that B
It has one
moviness
of
to
those
it.
classic establishing openings, doesn't it, where it pans through the aircraft.
As it was, I thought it was going to be like, the Simpsons was like Homer Simpson is the mayor. I thought it was going to be like
Yeah.
Paratroop Command. So Richard Bacallan was in Von Ryan's Express, Combat, the TV series of Batman and Gunsmoke. Then we have Ken Lynch playing the lieutenant. He was in Run Silent, Run Deep, Pork Chop Hill, Tora Tora Tora, and Gunsmoke. Then we have Jack Hogan as Ace Mason. And he's probably most famous for playing Kirby in Combat, one of the one of the principal cast. 112 episodes, Matt. Incredible.
Veteran.
Very, very. Probably the thing he was most known for. But his other TV roles include the Rough Riders, Colt 45, and Bonanza. And he also, interesting enough, was the one of the casting directors on Magnum PI, which was
That's
quite
wild.
interesting.
A career swerve
What a
that is. I
lovely,
love it.
amazing career. Then we have Jeff Morris as Pig Pen. He's probably best known to FOF fans as Private Cowboy in Kelly's Heroes, and he played Bob of Bob's Country Bunker in the Blues Brothers.
He did.
Brilliant. And he was also in Combat in 1962. And then we have James Beck as Cowboy. It gets confusing now because I've mentioned Cowboy twice, but this is a different character, different
Different
called
film.
Cowboy. Blink and you'll miss him in the movie. He was in Gunsmoke, Colt 45, the 12 o'clock high TV show, and Bonanza. And then finally, a little shout out to Sidney Lassick, who plays the German interpreter, the big guy at the end. He was famous for playing Cheswick in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Right.
and he was also in the TV version of Serpico. He was in Carrie and 1941. So it's a proper little sort of 50s cast there for you.
Doing classic chubby
He's like
German comedic
Hogan's Heroes man, isn't he?
Yes, he is. Yeah, he's doing
Colonel
that, isn't he?
Clink, is it? I forget the guy's name.
Yeah. I know.
I don't know. Never seen it.
Some classic combat references there, which is really interesting because this film does feel like a big episode of combat.
It does, doesn't it? It feels like a TV pilot in a way, like an extended first episode.
I think what that is with B movies of this ilk and war movie B movies specifically, obviously, you get that sort of serial vibe because they haven't got the budget, but they're trying to do a lot with what they've got. And Combat was always one of those shows which didn't have the budget of a movie, but they always tried to do as much with what they had.
Well, they do a hell of a lot on Combat. We need to do a Combat episode, really, don't we?
We do indeed.
But yeah, production this week.
So, as I mentioned at the top of the show, directed by William Witney, who was a US Marine Corps combat cameraman during the Second World War. This is one of his few war movies, surprisingly. Predominantly working on serials, westerns, a little bit of kind of early comic book adaptations. He directed the second unit battle sequences for the 1955 Alamo movie, The Last Command. And he did a trilogy of military-esque westerns with Audie Murphy in the 60s. He did Apache Rifles, Arizona Raiders, and 40 Guns to Apache Pass. And as I said, he worked on a whole slew of B movies over the years. Then he moved into TV, and then he moved back into feature work. So he had a really eclectic career. Did over 70 films, probably more to be fair. The film was written by Stan Shepner, who worked with Whitney on the 1958 film The Bonnie Parker Story, which is a gangster film, obviously about Bonnie and Clyde's Bonnie. Cinematography was provided by Gilbert Warrington, who incredibly began his career in 1916 and worked right through to 1963.
Blimey.
Working
it's
on
a tough
films
paper on that.
Man and boy. Worked on films including The Marines Are Here 1938, They Raid at Night 1942, Massacre 1956, Submarine Seahawk, which this film was a double bill with in 1959.
That's so good. You should watch it, Matt. It's brilliant.
I haven't seen it. You watched it, didn't you? You had your own little double bill. Nice.
When I had like a bit of a fevery moment earlier today when I was doing my notes, I watched the last 40 odd minutes of it, and there's a bit
which is probably like more than half of the film.
Yeah, it is. It's like 60 minutes long, but the submarines underneath all the battleships shooting torpedoes away, but there's a B-17 flying around for some reason, and there's like all the guys are
Listen, we've
giving
got
it.
the model. We've got the model.
It's
We can put it
brilliant.
in.
It looks like such a fun little thing. I've been thinking we should choose a double bill and do a double bill episode one day.
That's not a bad idea. That's not a bad
Yeah, I
idea.
think that might be fun.
He also worked on Atomic Submarine and Operation Bikini, which came out in 1963. It was one of his last films. Music was provided by Ronald Stein, who worked on Jet Attack in 1958, the Bonnie Parker story in 58
That's
as well.
a double feature with Suicide
It
Battalion.
is. Tank Commando and War is Hell in 1961. Again, they're both from double features as well. So, it's that B movie double feature. There's a whole industry built around that, and a lot of people have just worked in that sector of filmmaking.
Yeah, I really miss it. I think it's a lost art, double features. I think there's a room for them now.
In terms of cinema, we need to kind of reimagine what going to the cinema is like. I think we need to
bring back drive-ins.
I think we need to reassess what people want.
Yep, agreed.
Get people engaged again.
Yeah.
The film was produced by the American International Pictures Corporation, who were the production company behind Jet Attack, Suicide Battalion, Hell Squad, Tank Battalion, and Seahawk. Submarine Seahawk. So obviously you've got this production company which is facilitating this group of cinematographer, composer, writer, director. So there's a stable of people that they're working with regularly, and they're pushing these films out.
Yep.
And then of course we've got California backlots standing in for half of the Mediterranean, basically, because this film takes us from North Africa to Italy to Salerno, all the way through.
It gets around, but it doesn't
basically.
get around.
Yeah, right.
I love it.
Everywhere looks exactly the same. But again, it's classic B movie. It's just like Combat. It's all filmed in those, rolling Hollywood hills.
It's the sort of war movie version of filming in a quarry. You're just filming in the California backlot. I absolutely love
Basically, exactly.
I love it.
And that rounds out production.
Brilliant. No, the AIP are really interesting. What they churn out. Their first movie that they distribute is actually a 1953 documentary called Operation Malaya, all about the British
The poster for it looks
operating.
amazing.
Yeah, narrated by Chips Rafferty of Tobruk fame.
Oh,
yes.
wow.
Need to find a copy. It wasn't online, but maybe it's on DVD. We'll seek it out, and if we do, we'll cover it. So, on to this week's retro review, which comes from TV Guide. And they say, this double bill filler is surprisingly engrossing, both in terms of plot and characterization. Screenwriter Stanley Shepner resisted the temptation to assign a wide range of stereotypes to the squad members. They become real individuals to the viewer, unusual for a World War II action film, and even more so for a B program.
Do they?
I know. I thought that.
I would have said no.
You've got grizzled lieutenant, you've got hard sergeant, you've got raw soldier who does
two cowboys,
two southern types. Yeah,
got hard-nosed city dweller.
Yeah,
and then other hard-nosed city dweller.
Well, maybe to them they weren't stereotypes when that review was written. I think it was written in the 60s because this movie went to TV quite quickly. Apparently, when I was looking. So on to the one-word review, and we did have a few actually. I was quite surprised because this is like I'm not saying it's like unheard of, this movie, but I was surprised.
Well, it's a classic FOF move to cover something that's relatively obscure.
FOF fodder, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
So Paul Woodidge, World War II TV, do check out his channel.
Of course, Woody's seen it.
Of course, Woody's seen it. Yes.
I'd be disappointed if he hadn't.
He says Minefield. AD Bond goes with B movie. Brian Williams says cheap, and Paul, always one for being frank, just says unwatched. Paul Burns there. On to this week's Alley Tally.
It's time for Alley Tally on Fighting on Film.
Rob's clinging on here. He's pushing through.
I'm struggling.
Much like Parachute Command, we're fighting through to the end.
I've put a cool and soothe patch on about 10 minutes into this recording.
He has.
I look like war wounded.
He truly is a trooper.
I'm a paratroop commander.
There's literally nothing relevant to the title of this film. There's no Paratroop Command in this film. It's
No, there
just
isn't, is there?
one squad of
Yeah.
paratroopers.
It should be
US
called,
US Airborne.
it should be paratroop squad, paratroop platoon or something.
Paratroop Attack.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that. Yeah.
Airborne Assault.
Or like
Anything.
really, really 50s. They came from the sky. Sky
Yeah.
Raiders, parachute men, something like that.
In classic B movie style, everyone has got Thompsons. And I mean
Love it.
everyone. Although it's surprisingly nuanced in that all the Germans have MP40s and an MG42. Nice inclusion. But yeah, they all have M1928 A1 Thompsons, with the top charging handle.
Yeah. Yeah.
For the Thompson
With the-
aficionados out there.
And the cuts compensators that I think have been replaced because they look thinner than genuine ones. I think there's something to do with blank.
Might be. Yeah.
We've had it in a few of these movies from around that time. We always go, oh, the cuts compensators look chunkier. And I think that's something to do with blank. I've just got a feeling.
Maybe.
Just putting it out there.
The resolution of this was not good enough.
I found 2 copies of it online. For listeners, there's a version on YouTube and there's a version on Internet Archive. And the Internet Archive one is slightly better, but when you make it full screen, it does blow it out a little bit. And apparently this is on DVD if you can find it, but I've not found an official DVD. But yeah, no, it's great to see all the lads blasting away with the Thompsons with the band, and I do love it. It's really fun.
Classic. Everyone's got rifleman pouches.
Oh, I love it.
Rather than Thompson
I love
pouches
it.
trope in there.
Like,
Gotta love that.
I'm never going to sit here with a movie like this and go, oh, they're not wearing the white
No,
ribbon.
the only reason I mention it is because it's a classic trope, and I love a classic trope.
Exactly. It's great. It's so good. I mean, but they have got M41 jumpsuits on.
Yeah,
they do, which is
Yeah.
lovely.
There's some cool stuff going on.
They've got Mazette bags with a weird. I think they're using a belt as like a way to like hold it up on them. It doesn't look very comfortable in the movie. Did you notice that? There's some bits where the lads are really like restricted laying down. It looks really funny.
Good job. Most of them are like lying on the floor for most of the a lot of the scenes, aren't they?
That's true.
Like crawling around.
Any moment they don't need their weapon on, they do take it off. It's quite funny. As you said, the MG42, that was a nice inclusion at the start.
Yep.
Germans have their stereotypical 50s field grey uniforms. Proper, central casting kind of stuff here.
We need 20 German uniform. We need 10 German uniforms.
Yeah,
no problem. Here's some grey.
Get me 20 square-jawed men from central casting. Stick them in.
One fat guy for the comic effect.
Yeah, one Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan.
Hulk Hogan. I'm in a war movie, brother. I'm in a war movie, brother. Gonna bring down the pain.
What's your organization, brother?
It's Paratroop Command, brother.
Usually me that goes off like this. Matt's doing it for us, folks.
I'm doing it because he's ill, everyone.
You're filling in.
Filling the gaps.
But there is one thing that I do enjoy this week. It's the use of some really good use of stock footage here.
Oh, yeah.
Really good. So when they land in North Africa at the start, there's some establishing shots of just paratroopers landing to add a bit of flair. And I think, and I tried to corroborate it, I could be wrong, FOF fans might fill me in, but I think that is footage of the 82nd dropping in on Eindhoven at Market
Definitely
Garden.
seen it before. Yeah.
Yes. There's hay bales in the background, things like that. So I think it is Market Garden footage, and we are still in September. So nice little Market Garden reference there. And then later on, there's footage of Sherman tanks and jeeps, I think maybe in Salerno or Italy. So they've tried to use footage to make it work, and it gives the movie a little charm, because you're like, well, there's no way they're anywhere near a place that looks like that. It's quite cute in its way. I really love it. I'll say this week, I really love this movie. I think it's brilliant. Like, I just think it's so of its time. There's something about it.
I think it's one of those films where you appreciate what it's going for and the efforts that have gone into it, and that kind of elevates it a little bit.
I agree with you.
What else was that? There was the Dud Mark II grenade. And he was like, "That doesn't work for me, brother." That's one.
Sergeant Slaughter over here. Some right niche WWE references this week. Bloody heck.
Yeah, it's very basic stuff. But yeah,
It's effective,
but it
isn't
is,
it?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a half a dozen lads running around a
Mm,
field.
yeah.
You know,
And you've got a very competent director who knows exactly what he wants.
mm,
You know, he's not trying to make the next, attack or the next, thinking of 50s, the Young Lions or something like that. He's not trying to
mm.
make like the next big thing. He's filling a slot for a double feature. What do you want? You want to be entertained. You want to eat a few hot dogs and some popcorn and drive home in your Studebaker. It's perfect for what it's meant for. It's really
Yeah,
effective, I
no, that is
think.
very true. I agree.
Mm. No, I think so. Moving on to favourite scenes.
Hello, I'm Al Murray, and you're listening to Fighting on Film, the world's #1 war film podcast.
Rob, what was your favorite scene?
So that there's later on in the movie, I think they're meant to be they're in Sicily at this point. You wouldn't know it. They're in the same area they landed in at the start of the movie, just filmed at a different angle. And they go to this very, very non-Italian looking farmstead.
The most Californian-looking Italian farmhouse I've ever seen.
And then they get overwhelmed by like a force of Germans who come on bikes, but they say there's trucks and bikes, but there's just bikes, which I
No, there's
kind
a
of love.
truck. There is
Is
a
there?
truck, and I tried to ID it, and I was like, "Is that a Dodge WC?"
It was
But
a
it's not.
WC. Oh, the Dodge. It's
The
a
door
WC 51.
is it okay? Because the doors
Mhm.
aren't a WC6 because they aren't scalloped.
Yeah, they're 50s ones.
Yeah, 50s one. Okay, well that makes sense. Then. I was right,
Mm.
half right anyway. So I'll take
Dodge
that.
knowledge.
Yeah, but it was painted up with like the little German
Cross.
cross. So yeah, I like that sequence as well. But do
So they
carry
come
on.
in. That's all right. So they come in and they get kind of overwhelmed.
Mm.
And the Germans are shouting out, if you don't like give up, we'll shoot everyone in this house. And you get three of the most late 50s clothed extras coming out. One's wearing
Yeah, their
like
father and his wife. Yeah,
a
no
plaid
daughter.
shirt and
Sorry.
jeans, like with the Buffon hairstyle. I love it. I love it. Whitney's just on set being like, I don't care, just get him out of the house. The Germans come out and the interpreter runs over and he's like, proper hamming it up. And he
Mhm.
says, "Oh, what is your assignment? What is your organization? How many paratroopers are there?" He's probably giving it the old German accent. The lieutenant goes, "You speak pretty good English. Tell your captain to go to hell." Which I thought was really like proper commando booky kind of
Mhm.
stuff. Loved
For
it.
sure.
And then Sarge and Mason and Charlie, who by this point is the sort of black sheep of the squad because he accidentally shoots Cowboy, who was wearing a German uniform to
Yeah.
outfox a machine
Yeah.
gun position. But in his defense, I was like, he shot a bloke in a German uniform who was pointing a gun at his
100
mate
yards away. Yeah.
100 yards away.
Made a
Amazing
great shot with a
Thompson.
Thompson. To be
That's what I
fair.
was about to say. That, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but to be fair, the movie handles that really well because I'm flitting around, but the movie handles it quite well. Where the lieutenant is like, right, it's war. These things happen. He was wearing a German uniform and he's pointing a gun at Pigpen. So
Mhm.
we
Mhm.
can't really blame him. It's not a problem. And I think the dialogue for this is quite grounded, actually. The script is quite good. I think that's one of the movie's good features. That's why I like this interpreter scenes. It just adds a little bit of humor to the movie where it didn't really have it. It's quite a serious, sort of po-faced film in a way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, as I say, Sergeant Mason commandeer a motorbike and sidecar and ride in like the cavalry and sort of shoot up the Jerrys and save the day. And it's a proper little. If it was a western, it'd be the cavalry on the white horses coming in blasting the repeaters. But because this is a Second War movie, Whitney just goes, right. What's the 40s equivalent of horses?
Motorcycles.
Motorbikes. Exactly.
Give me some motorcycles.
Yeah. Then they come in and they shoot up. It's just great little sequence, and for a movie that was probably filmed on, I'd say at least sub $1 million, probably not even reaching that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just think it reaches really well, this movie. It sort of it wants to be better than it is, and because you've got such a sort of competent director in Whitney, he knows exactly what he wants, and it's just a great little sequence. What about you?
My favorite scene actually comes just before that. So it's the poor man's flamethrower scene
Ooh.
where I can't remember which I think it might be the sergeant, where he takes out his canteen and he says, "Poor man's flamethrower. There's 4 Germans take cover behind a hay bale. It's concealment, not cover." Um,
I was waiting for
behind
that.
behind the hay bale,
Like an old Matt
and
Fieldcraft mouse here.
and they've got them the Americans, the paratroopers, pinned down, and they're like, "We're going to be here all day," because they haven't got any grenades apparently. "We're going to be here all day," and one of them goes, "No, we won't." Pulls out his canteen, and one of them says, "What have you got in there?" And he's like, "It's gasoline." I'm like, "Why have you got gasoline in your water canteen anyway?" And he takes off like a scarf and he dips it in there, and he basically he makes a Molotov cocktail that won't break apart because it's a metal canteen. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
It's fine.
And
Roll with
he
it.
lashes it. He lashes it over into the hay bale, and the hay catches fire. It doesn't have to shatter. The petrol pours out of the canteen.
I love
It's
the
lit
mental
by the wick.
gymnastics you're saying to make this
Yeah.
work.
Absolutely fine. And it sets the
No one
entire
in 59 was completely remotely bothered about this.
no. And one of them has a great line where he goes, "If they've got any marshmallows, they'll be toasted free of charge."
Love it. Great line.
Love it. Great line. So, and then one by one, all the on fire like German soldiers come out flailing like actual on fire stunt work, which is nice.
Yeah.
So they're in the fire suits, I hope. Kind of
You'd hope so, wouldn't you?
It is the 50s. Flailing
We
around on
lost 3
fire.
men on that sequence.
Yeah. Whitney's like, "God almighty, we can't kill any more stuntmen. We just can't do it. This studio is going to kill me." Yeah, so that's my favorite scene. It
It's
just
brutal.
just a little bit of set piece scale, just a small scale thing, bit of fun, some
There's
fun
a-
dialogue, interesting concept, just a bit of a spectacle.
Yeah, and for its time, that is quite a brutal scene. You know, it's
The on fire sort of
Yeah.
flailing German, definitely. Yeah, yeah,
it's the 9 men machete scene, isn't it?
yeah.
But I think I'm paraphrasing what Tarantino said in an interview he gave. It was like a on stage interview, and he said there's a sort of frankness to Whitney's portrayal of violence. So like men get shot and they don't give the whole they don't fall and clutch their chest. They just slump down as if as you would.
I suppose that might come from his experience as a combat cameraman with
I
the
think
Marines.
it probably must. It must do. You know, seeing it at the coalface. But yeah, that's what Tarantino says. There's sort of a frank realism to his movies, which you don't get in that era. Apparently,
No,
according to
that's what I was
Tarantino.
going to say as well. You kind of, it must have been refreshing is probably not the right word, but you know what I mean.
I
Where
know what you
it would have
mean. I know what
been
you're getting at.
different,
Stark.
kind of. Yeah,
You know,
it sets itself apart from schlockier B-war movies.
it's not a John Wayne movie. It's
Yeah.
not. It's
Yeah,
not
there's
like
some
that
element to that, yeah.
in a way. God, John Wayne's taken
Um,
a kick in the last couple of weeks.
Oh, John. So I think that takes us into final thoughts.
Yeah. So as I've said all the way through, there's surprising amount of brutality in this, which I quite enjoyed in it for its time. For me, this is like reminds me of a 9 Men or a Ceasefire. It's a short but enjoyable little combat film. You know, you can tell why Tarantino sort of likes it and holds it up. Although you've seen things like this before, there is a sort of charm to this. It's cliche, but it's charming, and I think to wrap it up at over 110 minutes, it's just a fun little movie. You know, I can definitely see people, as I said, you know, driving to the drive-in, getting some food, enjoying the double bill, going home entertained. And we're in this Hollywood period in 59 where movies are still key entertainment. You know, not like now where we've got the streaming, we've got endless choice.
Yep.
You know, movies are being made to entertain, and this movie does it in bags. I really enjoyed it this week. Doing a couple of movies that I didn't enjoy, I sort of was really pleasantly surprised by this because it's been on the FOF list forever. This one, and because of my illness, we sort of were like, let's do something that we know we've wanted to cover for a while, and I'm really pleased we did because I've got a bad word to say about this film. I really liked it.
Yeah, it's a serviceable film. I enjoyed it. I'm not as blown away by it as you are. Don't really see why Tarantino loves it so much, but you know there are other films that do the same sort
He's
of thing in
Tarantino
the
though. He
same
loves
sort
all
of
stuff
way.
like this.
Yeah, I know he's the B movie king.
B movie
you know.
man. Yeah.
Whitney's clearly a very capable director, and he's able to achieve an elevated form of what a war B movie can be. And it does raise the bar, and he does reach, as you say.
Mm.
There's some classic B movie, B war movie tropes in there, which is always a bit of fun to see. Some intentional, some not intentional, I think. Um,
Yeah.
it to me, I know what you mean by it surprises. It you kind of go in expecting lower end B movie, and you come out
Yeah.
with upper end B movie, and that's a pleasant surprise. So like we're always banging on about Nine Men, but when we went into Nine Men, we expected like a small, not too action packed movie, and then we ended up experiencing a Last Stand film with lots of action, lots of
Yeah.
combat
This
that
isn't like Still
that
Bayonet.
portrays it really competently in a very effective manner.
Yeah, it's somewhere in the middle of Nine Men, Still Bayonet, Ceasefire, uh, that Combat Squad movie I talked about on a show and tell.
Yeah, yeah. And
It's
I
in
think
the middle of there.
if you've given Whitney another $100,000, 20 more guys, a slightly more in-depth script, I think he could have sort of
A
scooped
tank,
out
a half tracker
the
Jeep.
tank. Yeah,
Yeah.
he could have lifted it even further, because what obviously what the film's main draw is in terms of setting itself apart is it's a men in war combat film that looks at what is perceived as cowardice. So Charlie lands, and it's one of the best depictions of a weapon jam as a narrative device that I've seen.
Yeah, you're
He
right.
he takes a bead on a German machine gun team and his gun jams, and he you can see him racking the charging
Yeah.
handle. It doesn't clear the jam. Reloads, takes the magazine, puts a new magazine in. By that time, the German machine gun position has moved. The team's
Hmm.
pulled out, and he's cut off from his squad. By the time he gets back, one of them seems to think that he's been, a coward and froze, whereas in fact he'd seen a German machine gun team that he
Yeah.
wanted to go and attack, but the other guy
He even
moved
goes,
off
I
before he
got a
could get him.
jam. I
Yeah,
got a jam. Like, and
yeah,
they're
he
all like,
did.
really? Nah.
hmm And I really like the nuance of that. And I think if it had been a longer, bigger budgeted film, there would have been more space to explore that, because we get the lieutenant understands that he might have frozen him, been a bit of a coward, but there's also a very good chance that it is exactly how he says it happened.
Yeah.
And the same with the shooting of Cowboy. Cowboy, they put him in a German uniform of a someone that would I think he was a messenger that they killed
Yeah.
to try and get into a position that was pinning them down. And Charlie finally catches up with the rest of the squad, and he makes that shot across 100 yards across the Californian Valley and kills Cowboy. And they're all like, "Why did you kill Cowboy?" And he's like, "Well, I didn't know it was Cowboy." Like,
Yeah, exactly. Because
and
he was nowhere near there.
you've got that emotion. And he does have that desperateness of trying to, like, A, he's bewildered, and B, he's trying to desperately explain, "I didn't know
Yeah.
it was him 100 yards away."
And then he has his arc because he sacrifices himself at the end.
Exactly. And basically they have a minefield, classic minefield sequence where they're
Better than the
trying to
Anzio
cross.
minefield sequence.
Yeah,
A million times better.
yeah, that's we should do a minefield episode where we
We
just
should
top 10
take the
minefield
piss out of
scenes.
the Anzio scene again.
Can't be, yeah. Oh.
Never in a
Um,
battlefield situation. I'm going to find a masonry and just throw it.
throw
Sure
a
it'll
flag
work.
ahead. Throw
Yeah.
that flag ahead. Now you got a footbridge. Anyway, so he throws a series of grenades into the minefield and they explode. And the last one's a dud. The Mark II grenades are dud. And he says, "I'm going to do it anyway because there's some MacGuffin. He needs to get a generator over to a radio to call in a thing to stop a thing to help
Yeah.
the landings at Salerno or whatever." And he dies. And that is the sort of redemptive arc of his character. And he does have a scene where he explains that I've just never really settled in life. I've married twice and they were both nice women and I couldn't get on with it and I've never really achieved anything. So I thought I'm going to do the hardest thing possible and join the airborne.
Yeah.
And he does. And there's character growth, but he's the only one that gets the character
Yeah,
growth.
no one else gets it.
And that's okay because it's a B movie and it's like 70 minutes long. We haven't really got time for everyone else to have character growth, so you
No.
wouldn't expect it.
God, no.
So yeah, I think if Whitney had been given a little bit more scope, then he could have really explored this a little bit more. But I think Shepner's script is really interesting for a B
Yeah,
movie.
you mentioned script. I like the little bit when they're just about to jump over Sicily and you get like a little bit of context of, well, the drops are going badly. We're not over the drop zone. We're the
Yeah, we
only
can't find
Dakota
it.
left. You know, and that obviously famously the landings at Sicily were a bit of a rum do, and that's putting it lightly. So I really like that little bit of context there, which was nice. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, I really enjoyed it this week. You know, I'm not going to glaze it too hard, but I do think it's worth your time. Like if you got a spare 70 minutes, you could do a lot worse
Yeah,
than this.
in the annals of US War B
Yeah.
movies, it's certainly a decent one, isn't it?
And it certainly set something on a light in me because I was like, oh no, I want to go and I want to watch Submarine Seahawk now.
Yeah,
And that was like classic, looked like it was filmed in someone's front room. You know, it was brilliant. Really, really enjoyed
I think
that.
maybe we need a B war movie month at some point.
B movie month. Yeah. Drive-in month, maybe. Something like that.
Something like that. If
One
you
for the
have,
future.
if you're listening and you have a favorite B war movie, let us know on the socials what that is.
Yes.
Whether we should check it out or not.
We can corroborate them and make a little month up. Yeah, and talking of themed months, me and Matt have, if you're still listening, me and Matt have worked out the themed month for December. Don't worry,
Yes.
it's not Delta Force December again. Don't worry. All will be revealed in due course when I'm a little bit
We're
more.
finally going to cover the rest of the Dirty Dozen TV show.
You'll have a job, Matt, because only about 5 episodes have been digitized, so you'll have a job. We're gonna do Garrison's Gorillas from start to end. No, I'm joking. Although that would be fun. I would do that. Anyway,
Not a bad idea for
not
at some
a bad
point.
idea for some point. TV season, maybe TV month. Yeah, I like it. So, thanks for listening to another episode of Fighting on Film. Hopefully my horrible flu-tinged voice isn't too hard on your ears, and hopefully next week I'll be better. Thanks for joining us,
Fighting
folks.
fit next week, don't worry.
Fighting fit on Fighting on Film, let's hope. I'll catch you next week, folks. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
I said I'll catch you next week. I mean, we'll catch you next week. Bye, everyone.